So I think a lot of what Powell was talking about was mainly related to the uncertainty around tariffs and the implications there on whether or not that would affect inflation. It seems like Trump is using these tariffs as sort of a leverage tool for more of a short-term impact to bring other countries to the table.
Hello, everybody. I'm Pete Steiner. I'm also known as Grandpa Dypto, and I have the pleasure of talking with my partner and co-founder of Dypto-Crypto.com, your hub for all things crypto, CJ Miller.
And thank you, Peter. It's a pleasure being here, and excited to see where this talk goes.
And today, we're going to talk about what's going on in the crypto market, and especially a focus on what's happening with DeFi market issues and the impact on cryptocurrency overall. All right. So before we begin, CJ, would you mind sharing a little bit about your background in the cryptocurrency industry, especially with decentralized finance?
So technically, my crypto background extends all the way to 2010 when I was in high school and I started Bitcoin mining. There's a small group of us that somehow found out about this crazy thing called Bitcoin, and we set it up on our computers and we started mining a little bit. Unfortunately, I don't know where any of the Bitcoin that I mined went, so there's more Bitcoin that's out of circulation. So I guess that's good news for everyone. From there, it kind of fell into the background, and then in 2017, kind of when it came back into a resurgence, I got back involved. Not too heavily, but enough to buy a little bit and keep tabs on the industry. And then finally, in 2020, 2021, when DeFi summer started and DeFi actually kind of came to be almost, that's when I really started getting involved. I saw a lot of interest, not just from clients, but also from friends talking about crypto as well. And so I started delving into it and really got involved there. And that's when I would say my real crypto investing and crypto interest started from there. And it just kind of grew into this massive thing as the industry grew, and hasn't hit it mainstream, obviously, but to me, it feels like it's a lot more mainstream than it was in 2017. So yeah. But glad to see where everything's going.
All right. So the Fed, as you know, held rates steady on Wednesday this week. And they said, well, the American economy is on firm ground, but there's still a lot of uncertainty. And so they've kind of raised their inflation forecast and they're projecting lower growth. So what do you think are the implications of the Fed's activities for crypto in the short term?
So I think a lot of what Powell was talking about was mainly related to the uncertainty around tariffs and the implications there on whether or not that would affect inflation. And I think this is, somewhat speculation, but it seems like Trump is using these tariffs as sort of a leverage tool for more of a short-term impact to bring other countries to the table and have equitable trade deals. So I don't think the tariffs are going to be a long-term thing. I think they're kind of just short-term pain to get to a better point for the economy. In that sense, they'll probably create some turbulence and some volatility in the markets in the short term, maybe 3 to 6 months. My hope and my thesis is that hopefully by the end of that 6 months or so, we'll see kind of those tariffs being reduced or ridden altogether. Then we'll have a smoother sailing for the foreseeable future.
Yes, and in the short term, we've seen prices take quite a hit. Bitcoin, Ethereum, a lot of the premium cryptos are way down compared to where they were earlier in the year. Do you expect that to continue in the short term? Because you mentioned volatility.
Yeah, I don't think so necessarily. We're seeing a lot of support at the levels that we're getting at, and we've even recovered some. So what I'm seeing today, I'd like to say is kind of maybe either the bottoming out or just kind of the consolidation factor before maybe starting to slowly gain even against this uncertainty. A lot of forecasts and stuff say that around 7,700 Bitcoin or 77,000 Bitcoin wise is where kind of the bottom is, or where like the lowest support level really is. So right. I think with that, we almost hit that. I think the lowest has been 78 so far. So maybe there's room for a little bit more, but yeah. I think we're really at that point where it's a low end. And the other thing that Powell mentioned was quantitative easing, and how that's going to slowly be winding down. by April. And that's actually quite bullish for crypto as well. So that's a little bit more complex question than I can totally answer. But essentially, it comes down to liquidity in the market and offering more liquidity. So that will kind of prop up the stock market, and then that flows into more like risky assets, like crypto.
Into other risk assets and so on. Sure. One of the questions I've had as you were saying, the industry has come a long way since you put your both feet back in some 4 or 5 years ago. Now, a lot of institutional investors are getting involved, as we know, with both ETFs and other ways that they can invest. But what about the commercial aspects of cryptocurrency? What do you foresee? That meaning businesses accepting crypto for payments, crypto credit cards, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think there's one important thing to remember is that there already is an entire industry, commercial industry, working on crypto payments or working off them, right? So the entire crypto industry essentially pays for and barters with their crypto. So a lot of my own businesses, invoices and stuff are paid in stable coins or other crypto. And so in that sense, it's already being adopted. But the crux of that is almost all these companies, when they have to do business, let's say outside of the industry, we have to convert it back to a fiat. Generally, that means, selling it on a centralized exchange or a marketplace and then transferring those real dollars or those fiat currencies.
So the local deli or your clothing store or whatever is not going to be accepting crypto anytime soon. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of debate in the crypto industry where people kind of go on like one or the other side. So one side says, hey, crypto needs to be kind of the currency, right? Everyone wants Bitcoin to be the currency. Whether that's feasible, there's a lot of debate there. But the other side of it says crypto should never be in the limelight. It should just be the background technology that everything operates off of. So if you think about how crypto is right now, it's quite a complex industry, right? A lot of technicalities with it. And if you compare that to our current banking system, there's a lot of technicalities there, but we don't ever hear about it. Really, how many people understand that they're operating on the SWIFT payment system? Or how many understand really the background that goes into a lot of these banks, right? That they kind of just see their dollar value in their account, they have a credit card and they can swipe that. And so there's really those two camps. I'm of, I would say, kind of the second account, where I think there will always be people operating on the blockchain. There will always be people heavily involved in decentralized finance. But when we want to appeal to a mainstream audience, or even just your everyday deli or coffee shop, it's going to be something where they don't necessarily have to think, oh, this is crypto. It's going to be, oh, this just happens. One of the things that I've actually just recently seen is bank accounts that are actually incorporating USDC and having an equivalent exchange between the two. So one bank that I'm with actually allows me to deposit my USDC and immediately converts it. So kind of in their own system, they're converting it to real dollars. So in their system, they see USDC as an equivalent to just a standard US dollar, meaning that I never have to actually sell. I can actually just have clients pay their invoices to this bank account, and then I can actually use ACH, I can use a card, I can wire it all from this account, and the bank is just seeing it as an equivalency. So that's a potential that could be a bit more
kind of emerging with crypto and TradFi.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're hearing all about the strategic Bitcoin reserve. A lot of states are looking at doing something similar. In addition to what the federal government is doing, some very high-powered people like the Secretary of Treasury are very much involved. And there's been some discussion about whether they're only going to use the Bitcoin that they had acquired from scams that they pulled the money in. But there's also discussion about them now using potentially taxpayers' money to buy more. Could you just give us a sense of what that's all about and what the implications are, not only for Bitcoin, but for all crypto?
Yeah, so I'll give Trump credit and then also kind of call his bluff here too a little bit. So on the one side, he did write an executive order that stated, hey, we want to create a strategic reserve of a mixture of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, XRP, Ripple, and I think it was Solana or something. And I think it also included potential for others as well. That's an executive order, but something like that has to go through Congress. And I think as an American, you know, as soon as something has to go through Congress, the life cycle of that just extends considerably. So the easiest path essentially to that is what he did with the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, where he's taking the existing Bitcoin that you mentioned was like repossessed or taken from Silk Road and like these other operations that were taken over by or ended by FBI and whatnot. And rather than them dumping on the market, essentially what they've been doing for the last couple of years, he said, no, we're just going to hold this. And side note, they did a calculation on if they had just withheld all that Bitcoin and stored it rather than pushing it on the market, and today it would have been worth close to $14 billion as opposed to the couple $100 million that they overall sold it for. Kind of a big number there that they missed. People
are very frightened about the fact that the government is using risk assets in this manner. I mean, it's scary. What happens if it crashes? Are we out taxpayer money or what?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the things that is positive about what Trump did was we're just withholding these assets, so there's no loss to it, right? These are assets that the government already was holding, so we're not spending money for it and we're not losing money technically.
If they add to it, what's the implication there?
That's much more complex because, again, that's another thing that will really have to go through Congress and get approvals from both the Senate and the House, because then we're actually allocating taxpayer money to purchase these assets. So I think that's going to be a lot longer road, and there's potential for it to happen, and there's also potential for it to not happen, depending on the members there. So I wouldn't necessarily count on it. I don't think I think it's priced in that it doesn't happen, at least for a couple years at least. So it would be very bullish news if it somehow did pass. And also within that mind, I don't think it's the number one priority for this administration either. I think there's a lot of other things that come before pushing this kind of bill through the House and making that happen. So I wouldn't be holding with bated breath.
Well, we're going to keep everybody updated through our newsletter, and I just want to make a quick pitch that if anybody is interested, there's so much you can get out of Dypto-Crypto.com. We have a free ebook download. You can sign up for our newsletter. We have a ton of assets on the site that'll help people understand the wide range of all things crypto. So I hope everybody will come over. CJ, we'll do this again next week, and thank you. It was great, as always.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure being here. Thanks.